Well, hello, everyone. We are pre-recording this episode of Mystic Mavens as Joanna is going to be traveling. So this will be up on the channel on the day that we need it to be, which is June. Let's see, let's make this right. It will be up to see on June 18th. So stay tuned. And I'm Carol Pilkington. I'm a spiritual counselor and teacher, and I work with people that are in high anxiety, depression, and going through grief and loss. And so I'm going to turn it over now to Claudia.
Hello, everyone. I'm Claudia Rocafort, and I am a spiritual coach. I'm a business coach and also a spiritual facilitator. And I am thrilled to be here with my Maven sisters for this conversation Joanna's going to guide us on today, and looking forward to it. Take it on, Kathy.
Take it on. All right. I'm Kathy Basel, and I am I do energy healing, and I'm a transformational life coach. I work primarily with women because I believe consciousness is rising, and it's time for us to offload all those old emotions, the blocks, the karmic things, inherited, ancestral, all that kind of baggage that's been weighing us down far too long. I call my company the Vitality Code. It's all about having full vitality in all areas of your life. So that's me in a nutshell, and I can't wait to hear Joanna's conversation that she's teeing up for us today. So take it away, my friend.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. And I thank my Mystic Maven sisters for changing their schedule so we can be here today together. I love when we gather together. It's always a great time and great conversation. So I'm Joanna White. I'm a spiritual, holistic, intuitive teacher. And what I like to teach is all about you. So the name of my business is You Factor Wellness, is because I had to learn how to factor myself in. I knew about everybody else and what everyone else needed except myself. And this journey of self-awareness started over a decade ago. And it started with someone asking me the question, what makes you happy? And I couldn't answer. I didn't know. I didn't know what made me happy. After being married for almost 15 years, I believe at that time, having 2 children and working a job for over 15 years that I really didn't love, I was like, none of this really makes me happy. What actually makes me happy? Who are you, Joanna? It just led to a series of questions that I always say, when you ask the questions, the answers will appear. So one of the answers that appeared along this journey for me was the 4 Agreements. I started with reading that book, and not only reading it, but I started a group where we would read it together. Along my journey, I have learned that I'm a woman who loves to learn. I stay on a path of continuous education. So along that path, I had studied the Bible. I had studied the body in different ways, phlebotomy and nursing, and just how things came together for me always led me to me. So when I came across the 4 Agreements, I just wanted to share it, because the biggest question for me was, who are you? And a lot of women, a lot of people ask that question. And some people are used to being told who they are. And that's what I realized. I was told who I was. Joanna, you speak a lot. Joanna, you talk too much. Joanna, people will tell you anything. Oh, Joanna, you're very loud. Oh, Joanna, you're this. Oh, Joanna, you're that. So a lot of times we have an outside perception of who we are. And what I learned is we start agreeing to it. And when the 4 Agreements came to me, I realized I have a choice on what I agree to. And the truth is, I'm not a loudmouth, but I do speak my points very loud. I can speak my points loud. I can be loud. But sometimes we make agreements within ourselves that do not serve us. And I learned this along the way. You learn, what have I agreed to? One of the things I agreed to was being married. I loved being married. It was a joy for me to make my husband happy, to make the kids happy. But what I realized I was agreeing to at that time was making everyone else happy. So I had to go within. Going within is not always an easy journey, is what I'll say. And also learning that this journey, I'm causing it myself, really. I'm the one that's making the agreements.
Mhm.
So that's not always good to feel or hear either, that I've decided for this to happen in my life. I decided for someone to tell me, I know what it takes to make you happy, but I just choose not to do it. I would never decide to hear those words. I would never agree to hearing those words. At least that's what I thought. So now I started reading the 4 agreements. The first agreement, be impeccable with your word. Now, going to school for Bible study, for all of these things, you hear so much how the word is so important. We were taught it's a double-edged sword. It can heal and it could kill and it could do, but I never understood what that really meant. And now I had to pay attention to what that really meant. When we speak, are we speaking against ourselves or are we speaking for ourselves? So when you're being impeccable with your word, what are you really saying? What are you saying to others? And what are you saying to yourself? I had to start questioning that. I had to start paying attention to that, especially if you're telling me I'm creating this myself. So how am I creating this? A lot of times we don't take ownership. It is so much easier to say, no, not me. I didn't create this. And then I had to look back on some of the things that I was saying to myself, some of the things that I still say to myself. That's part of the journey of learning me, is these agreements. And the agreements start with your words, with the words that you are speaking. It's telling you what you are agreeing to. It really is. What are you agreeing to in your life? What are you agreeing to in your relationships, in your business? One of the things I had to sit back and say or look at was, how did I agree to this? And it usually is in our words. One of the things that I've done along the journey is writing, journaling. And even looking back on what I was writing, I realized what I was agreeing to. When we are in a constant state of asking and needing and wanting, it's putting us in a place of not being happy. We are at a place where we're looking for something other than what's in that moment. What am I grateful for? What am I happy for? And I had to look back at the words that I was saying and writing and doing. And I realized those words wasn't lining up with me and what I really wanted to see. It was more of everyone else and everything else. I began to realize how I was, what they call in the 4 agreements, domesticated. domesticated into what I was told to be, who I was told to be. Being married, you can't have kids out of wedlock. So when I found out I was pregnant, I got married at 22 years old because that was what I was supposed to do. Was it what I wanted to do or needed to do for me? I didn't know at 22. I'm pregnant. You're not supposed to have a child out of wedlock. And you don't want to be a baby mother, so you got to get married. I planned a wedding in 3 months and I was married. Is that what served me? I didn't know. I didn't know if that, at that time, yes, it felt like that's what I was supposed to do. That was the agreement that I made. But the agreement was also made off of the beliefs that I was taught. It was what everybody else said it was supposed to be, and not necessarily what I wanted or needed for me at the time. So I just want to ask, have any of you ever made an agreement?
No. Yeah, I would say my biggest one was also my marriage. I was 28, and that was the time I'd been dating this really nice guy. He was professional, on paper I looked perfect, and it was time. So yep, that was the way. But I like how you said that other people are telling us, and we're the ones that are agreeing with it. We're not recognizing the words that we're saying to ourselves. We haven't even taken the time to assess that. And I think that's the biggest gift that we can give ourselves, is looking at the results that you have in your life right now. What are the words that you're telling yourself? If there's something that you're striving towards that we're not achieving, and I'm doing this self-inventory for myself right now, it's like, oh wait, I've been working hard towards this thing, so, and it's not manifested yet, so there must be something within. And I love, like you said, you found that you're really someone who loves personal growth. So I think anytime we go within, to me, it's an adventure. It's something fun that I get to discover some other old creepy thing that I've tucked away somewhere, and bring it out to the light, and it can be gone easily. So it doesn't have to be so big and scary, but I do think it's essential to living an extraordinary life. If that's what everyone we're achieving, we're striving to become more and more of our beautiful, unique selves, then it does require going in and just assessing what parts am I agreeing to that serve me, and let go of the rest. Awesome. Great conversation, Joanna.
Yeah, it really is. We come in, my experience is that we come in predisposed to these agreements because of the environment that we're living in, the culture that we're living in. And, there are some beliefs out there that we come in knowing what we agreed to beforehand. That's not, I say it's a belief because I don't know it directly. I haven't experienced that directly. I don't remember coming in agreeing to these things, right? But I have heard many people that have had not only near-death experiences, but spontaneous out-of-body experiences where they conferred or communed with the outer world, where they saw that they came in with these agreements, knowing. But when we come in, it's like our memories are erased, right? Of what might have transpired before this incarnation. And I think that's so that we can learn new lessons. And so with regards to this particular agreement, what I take away from it is that whatever I say or do to another, I'm also doing to myself. And so when I make that real, then I can make better choices for myself. And when I make myself real, I make other more real. And so the conversations, the words that I use, the actions that I take become more intentional and more conscious.
And that you just hit on the most powerful aspect of it, is that making it more conscious, right? For us to be able to evolve and grow, it starts there. It starts looking within. It starts looking in the mirror. That's where the change can happen. That's the place of power. And that's where we can say, okay, how am I showing up? And I want to bring a very down-to-earth, real example for anybody listening, because that's part of what our mission is, right? Is how to bring and apply all these tools in our day-to-day lives. For me, the biggest example was in my childhood. My mother and I moved from Spain to Venezuela, but my father remained in Spain. And it was really tough for me as a little girl, wishing and hoping for daddy to come. And for several years, he was there every 3 months and I'd see him regularly, but something shifted, his finances, whatever happened, that shifted and different, but he'd still promise that he'd show up. And he'd say he'd be there for my birthday, and March would roll around and he wouldn't make it. And he said he'd be there for summer, and summer would show up and it'd roll around and he wouldn't make it. 6 years of this, unfortunately. What does that do to a little girl, right? There, you can create all these stories about abandonment, about not being worthy, about not being loved enough, all these things. And it's all, I understand now, he wanted to be there. He was hoping he could be there, but he didn't realize the damage or the pain that when that date came around and him not being there caused, right? So that integrity, that's the level of integrity. It starts with what we believe. It starts with, like Joanna was saying, the conditioning. We're conditioned by our church. We're conditioned by our religion. We're conditioned by our schools. We're conditioned by the countries that we were grown up in. The communities shape us in our beliefs and what our values become. Our homes, our parents. Sometimes we don't even question. Do we have prejudices? Do we even question why our parents believed what they believed and why each generation before may have held those, right? So it starts with that question. How do I want to show up in the world? Who do I want to be? And how can I show up in integrity? How can I walk my talk? Whatever I say, can I take responsibility for it 100%? Can I question my beliefs and see, you know what, they don't serve me. Just because I was taught this as a kid, or I was taught this at church, or I was taught this at school, I don't agree with it, or I don't want to agree with it, right? Where do we get to claim ourselves and rebuild our inner values? And how do we get to show up on those to everybody else?
And that's it, is building yourself. Number one, what are your inner values? A lot of times our inner values are based off of what we're taught, of the beliefs we're taught. A value would be to be married and to, some people value that, but it's what I was taught to do. Once you fall in love, it's the natural response of what's supposed to happen. And just learning, did it serve me at the time? Absolutely. Like I said, I didn't have an issue with being married. Would I have gotten married so young? And I don't want anybody to misconstrue that. But for everyone, the timing may have been different for me, or it may have been something different if I didn't look at what everybody else was telling me I should do. And that's when you kind of pull it back into yourself. A lot of times, like even with my kids, being able to pull away and allow them to make the decisions on their own, because it's not my belief. And I have a son that lets me know, Ma, that's the way you were taught. That's not how it is anymore. So I'm grateful for him, because he speaks his mind and he knows that it doesn't serve him. Does it always feel good? No, it doesn't.
That's the challenge of raising kids, right? They get to be great master teachers and mirrors for us. And it's not always easy. I want to jump in here for a moment because that is such a powerful example for me into how much I wanted to make that different for myself with my kid and say, I won't make promises I can't keep. If I'm promising something, I better show up. And if I can't, the minute that I realize that I can't, I'm going to turn around and explain to him why I can't and make a new agreement. So this is how we evolve. To me, this is evolution, right? Is we're going to make plenty of mistakes, but let's not make the same ones, ideally, that were made with us.
And that's the key. We can't not make mistakes.
The other thing I wanted to say too is that it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to question the norms and the embedded programming that we have to say, I don't know if this is right for me anymore.
Mhm.
Because we can be ostracized by the community that we're in. We can be, turned away. In my life, this happened to me. My grandmother literally disowned me for a time because of her belief systems. And I had no idea that she had felt a particular way. And I didn't find this out until another member of my family told her about what my intentions were. I was coming home from California to New York to visit for the holidays, and I was going to be bringing somebody, or I was wanting to bring somebody with me that I didn't know that she didn't approve of. But they told her that that was a possibility. I hadn't made the decision yet. But from that moment on, for a good 4 years, I never saw my grandmother. She totally cut me out.
Mm.
And it wasn't until her son, my uncle, said, you can't continue to do this, and brought us back together again. But so it takes courage to go against the grain of the people that we care about and the communities that we're in.
That's true. That's
Even
so
the
true.
family nucleus, like you were saying, the immediate family can so disapprove that people sometimes go without communicating for years. And so why do we do that to each other? Right.
And it's mostly our beliefs. It's cultural beliefs, religious beliefs. There's a lot of beliefs that causes separation. And that was one of the things, because like Carol said, when you become courageous enough to realize that this belief is no longer serving me, that's the first thing you feel is separation. Because a lot of times you're alienated, people don't talk to you. And that's what a lot of people fear, is that separation. The fear of not being included. Everyone wants to be included. Everyone wants to be wanted. Nobody wants to feel like they're not part of something. That's why you have sports. That's why you have so many things, fan-based things, because people just want to feel a part of something. So when you feel like your family will disown you. For me, it was big because the church, when I decided that this was not serving me, it was really hard to make that decision to leave. It was really hard to stand up and get up and say, you're not going to be doing this anymore. It was what was ingrained in me. It was what, until this day, a lot of people still don't talk to me because of that move over 15 years ago that were very dear to me. And being able to realize that it didn't serve me was a very, I didn't look at it as being courageous. It just looked at as how much more will I hurt myself? It didn't become about anyone else anymore. It was, I'm hurting. And a lot of times we look at this journey of self-awareness, it usually comes from a place of pain. You're looking for a way to be happy, a way to just feel, and I mean feel life, feel joy, feel peace. There's a feeling that is almost void, and you're looking just for that void to be filled. And a lot of times we hear the same things, and I go back because my history, my foundation is the church. So being in that for so many years, studying it, thinking this was my path, and to be told that is not your path. And I mean, to hear that voice clearly say, it's not your path, is almost scary. It was very scary, because now everything I knew was being changed. And I'm talking from marriage, from church, from family, everything changed. And I had to realize, okay, what's the code of conduct you need for your life? This is the code everybody told you. And I mean, down to my job. Me and my mother were both conductors for Long Island Railroad. Why did I do that? Because I saw that it served the purpose for her, for my family, as my mother took care of us, then it'll serve the purpose for my children as well. So even the path I took as my career was what I saw someone else do. And that's why I think one of the biggest things for me is freedom, is to be free to be who I am. So as I learn and as I move forward, I'm learning the beliefs. And okay, is this belief serving me? That's one of the things, if nothing else, we get today, like these agreements that we make in life, are they serving you? Questioning who you are. Being able to say, you know what? I don't really enjoy doing this. This is not something I really like. Matter of fact, I don't even like how that made me feel. And being able to know that is a very empowering place to be. It's because a lot of times people don't even realize that they're just following a path. And I'm getting away from.
Well, but I don't think so. There's a fellow, David Brooks, wrote a book. It's called The Second Mountain. And to me, I love this, because the first mountain, he says, is us finding success on the way we think that society requires it from us. And the second mountain is us discovering the mountain that's true to ourselves. So I think it's just like a rite of initiation, if you will, trying on that mountain. Does that work for me? And in a way, sometimes the best clarity comes from that contrast of like this, that, and the other thing doesn't work for us. I think those oaths, the words that we say to ourselves, talking about being impeccable with our words, those words might be things that we vowed or made oaths to ourselves, a promise that we made to ourselves in reaction to the hurt. Like Claudia, my childhood was rife with divorce and lots of pain surrounding that, as my dad started his second family before cutting off with the first one. So there was a lot of conflicting messages. So my vow to myself was that I would never get divorced, because I didn't want to inflict that amount of pain on other people. And so I was living in that vow, not realizing till, like you said, slowly my soul was dying, until the one day, like I felt like I couldn't breathe, and I couldn't identify why. There wasn't outwardly, everything looked fine, but there's that just lack. I like your word, void. There was a void that just didn't feel like the aliveness that my soul was really calling for. And that was the beginning of my rebirth, my trek to my second mountain. And it's funny because you said, we buy into what other people are telling us. Literally, one of the crazy thoughts that after I was getting, it was looking like the divorce was finalizing. I was like, wow, now who's going to tell me what to think? Because I have my sister, Patty, thanks, who as a child always told me. Then I got married and he was telling me what to think. And now I'm like, oh, wait a second. I get to do that now. So I think we get to that joyful place, and it can be scary because it's like, well, I don't know what to tell myself now. It's like, uh-oh, now what? And that's and just know that this can be a joyful journey. It's scary, yes, and that too can be part of the illusion that we create for this next part of life.
And it's interesting. I mean, ideally, we want to make these choices consciously and effortlessly and joyfully, right? Just by sitting in the question of, why do I believe this? And looking. Otherwise, life kind of throws an invitation our way that we may not choose, right? So, for example, I had a car accident when I was 18 years old, and I've mentioned this before. That made me question everything. It made me question why I was here. What was the purpose of my life? What was reality? Why had I survived? It made me question religion. It made me question all my values. It made me question every religion. So I went into this fervor of trying to understand all the religions, all the beliefs. Why were our differences? What were our separations? What's the purpose of it all? And that started this path that brings me here today. But it's been a lifelong love lesson, I guess.
Oh, I love that.
Love lesson. I do like that.
And my master teacher used to always say, Claudia, at the end of the day are you willing to love yourself more today? That question, does it serve you, is really about, am I willing to love myself more today and release whatever does not serve me or does not serve the community, humanity at large? Can we look not just inside, but also at everything and everyone, and the connectedness and the oneness, and what we would like for the world to look like? That integrity, that's how we get to show up, integrity with our words. To me, that's the mission, I guess.
Yeah, and to include in that, anywhere we're blaming or judging ourselves for who or what we've done up until now, going against yourself is a sin. That's not being impeccable with your word. That's off target. So let that stuff go. But gosh, even the judgment has been passed down as a way of being and thinking and deciding and choosing. It's like, wow, it was a big awareness that the moment when I realized that was my parents' way of deciding, if you will, and it didn't have to be mine. It was very liberating.
Wow. Absolutely. And it's self-inflicted pain is what it actually is. And we do it not even knowing that we're doing it, and that's the, I guess the unfortunate part is that a lot of people don't realize that that's what's happening. And I'm grateful to be on the journey of awareness, where we do know it's happening, where you can say, am I making this agreement with myself? Really? Is this what you're saying? You're not smart enough. You're not good enough. You're not thin enough. These are agreements that actually run through our heads. And it's just that simple. Your hair is not long enough. It's not pretty enough. It's not soft enough. Just simple thoughts like that are agreements that we decide to make with ourselves. And being impeccable with the word is number one, I'm more than enough. So we can eliminate all that other self-chatter by just saying, I am more than enough. And that's being impeccable with my word. So when you decide the words that you're speaking, one of the things to be aware of, is it for me? Is it making me a better person? Meaning, do I feel better about myself? Because if it's something that's talking against that, it's not the truth of who you are. Knowing who you are is the real journey. And knowing that you're a force to be reckoned with. You are a force like the sun and the stars. We are all one. This body that you're in is your universe, and you speak to it. Every cell, every organ, every tissue, every joint is part of your universe. And when it's not moving the way that it should be or is designed to be, and that's in just total greatness, everything about you is great. And anything that talks against that is not serving us. So when you don't know if something's serving you or not serving you, if it's not contributing to your greatness, it does not serve you. Knowing that if your words are not speaking greatness to you or anyone else, it's not serving. Gossiping, cussing, all of these things are things that don't serve us. Do we do it? It comes along the journey. And it's being aware, you know what, this conversation isn't serving me right now. It's not serving anyone. Whatever that may be, knowing that your words are now creating, they're creating everything for you. So when they say be impeccable with your word, it's because, not because, just because, it's because how powerful that word is. And that word itself is creating or destroying. Which one? You choose one every day. Every time you speak to yourself, every time you speak to someone else, you're choosing. Am I creating a better version of me? Or am I tearing down the version that's here? Our words that we choose. And I am going to tell you, I am very strategic with the words that I use. And I know that when I'm hurt, I can use words very good to hurt someone else. I've learned that about myself. And a lot of times that can't be taken back. So when you choose your words, choose them very carefully and truly be impeccable with them. Because now what happens is we go into hurting people with our words. And what the next agreement that I want to talk about is not taking anything personally. So sometimes people say things to you unbeknownst to what they're really saying. They don't realize that it's hurting. And I'm one of those people that have done it. And I can say something and not even realize that it hurt a person. And I wouldn't say I just wasn't aware, is what I'll say. But being aware and being more impeccable with my words, I had to also realize I can't take anything personally. That's why I'm spewing out the words that I'm spewing, is because I'm taking this personally now. Why shouldn't we take things personally? Because nothing is about us. They're not doing this to intentionally hurt you, or Joanna, that's not happening because of something you did. This is what this person is going through at this time, at this moment, at this time in their life. And you just happen to be the character that's here along in their movie. And sometimes we don't know the roles that people have signed up for. I didn't even realize the role of who I was sometimes. You know, you show up and you go, I'm a wife today, I'm a conductor tomorrow, I'm a mother right now, I'm a minister at the church, every role comes different. And sometimes when people come and they talk to you, or they don't know that I'm still in mommy role right now, and meanwhile I should be in conductor role, but I just found out that whatever's going on, and then you show up on the job and somebody says something to you and you're like, you got to be kidding me. What's just happened here? But I'm assuming, they're assuming. We begin assuming, and now it becomes an argument or a fight, and I'm taking something personally. This has happened to me over the years of having to work with the public and work with people, is that sometimes you take things personally. And one of the big things I would say along this journey was, during my time at work, you'll get a commuter that'll come on the train. They'll have their cup of coffee, they'll have everything, and they don't have no money to buy a ticket. You knew you was getting on this train. What are you talking about? That's real easy for me to take personally now, because now my job is in question. Because now how do I handle you? You know, so now it becomes a battle that you didn't even realize that you were having for the day, or whatever it might be, because now I have to play this role and you have to play that role. But when we learn not to take it personally, you know what? He didn't know what conductor he was going to get on this train. It wasn't targeted at me. This was just his lack of preparation, or, you know, like, you just have to understand sometimes this has nothing to do with me. And that's one of the biggest, I want to say, battles that I had was with my job and taking things personally there. That's the one that I could target in the most, because a lot of times these people aren't even thinking about me. They don't know who they're getting when they're getting on this train. They don't know. This is just who they are. That's it. It has nothing to do with me. So learning that a lot of times when we're dealing with other people, and just keeping your perspective. My perspective is to have a good day, to get home safe, to be happy. That's the only perspective that I can hold. And once you're holding your perspective, normally all that other stuff lines right up for you. And when that person comes, and I don't take it personal, what just happened to them, because they are moving off of what just happened to them. And we sometimes don't even know what that may be. And now it becomes a battle that didn't need to be. Sometimes bowing out gracefully and just simply saying, you know what, have a nice day. Because that's what I want to have today, is a nice day. So just let them have a nice day and keep going, you know? Have you ever taken anything personally, ladies?
Sorry, I think that's the biggest challenge. I mean, of all the agreements, that was definitely the biggest challenge. In my family, we would sometimes use very hurtful words. I learned to fight back. And it's difficult when people you love are saying horrible things to each other. How do you not take that personally? How do you not take it personally when it's your spouse or your boyfriend or your mother or your sister or your lover, right? How could they say something about you that you feel is such a misperception?
Mhm.
So that's the biggest challenge for me where disagreement is concerned is, okay, how do we do that? And it's taken a lot of practice and many, many, many years of, and I'm still not quite there, but I'm working on it. It's a work in progress. Let's put it that way, right?
Absolutely.
As we all are in different ways. To be able to say that's their limitation or their limiting belief, or the fact that they don't know how to see it from another perspective, or the fact that this is questioning their value and they don't, and they're making a judgment about yours. So again, it's not necessarily about me, but it's about their beliefs, their values, their stance, their position, their expectations, their needs, desires, or ego, right? And when I can take that step back and notice that and say, okay, just allow for all the perspectives, for all the opinions, and for all the ways of being. Let go and let live, and we can agree to disagree.
I think that's so this is one of the agreements that really has impacted me the most as well. Because when I was able to take a step back and examine and see how someone closest to me operated in life with everybody, then I could see that what this person did or said, and the way they did or said anything was not personal to me. That's how they were with every other person in their lives. And so when I could actually see that, it was truly a revelation, so that I never again took anything that this person said to me or did
Mm.
personally. It's just their way of operating. And when we can begin to see that for the people closest to us, we can begin to see that for the people that are around us, that are in our sphere of, or our field of our worlds. And we can apply that accordingly, because we all have our own reality tunnel, and we all see things with our own lenses, and we operate from that place. And when we can make that as real as possible, we don't tend to get as triggered and go down the rabbit hole of that trigger as much. We can begin to eliminate the triggers, in fact, and just accept and see people where they are and make the decisions for ourselves, whether we want to be, involved with that situation or that person anymore. We get to choose. The moment we have that impartial ability to observe and see things from a distance, we have choice. It's like you can't see the wall if you're up against the wall, right? And so that has been one of the biggest lessons in my life with regards to the personal, impersonal set.
Yeah, that's why I love that term that you have, the reality tunnel, because it's really just a matter of perspective. Like, other people haven't experienced the things that we have, so their perspective is by nature going to be different than ours. So you got to go back and watch our last episode on resolving conflict. That was a deep conversation as well. For me, I learned this actually early on. I think I may have shared this story before. When I was 8, I had a dachshund, and I was running across the street. He got hit by a truck. And when I went out to pick him up, he had broken his back. His back was broken, so he was in extreme pain. When I went to pick him up, he bit me. And as an 8-year-old, I didn't understand, don't take things personally. And my mom came running out to help and explain. I'm like, he bit me. Like, why would he bite me? My beloved dog. And my mom explained, he's in pain. And so I began from an early time recognizing that hurt people. And so, just like Claudia was saying, that we don't need to rise up and meet them at that level of hurt to exchange negative words. It's just recognizing, allowing them to be on their path where they are, and recognizing in our reality tunnel that doesn't matter. It's not going to impact me where I am, because I'm choosing, like Joanna was saying, I'm choosing to have a good day. So I'm not going to take somebody's spilt coffee morning to be my bad day. So, or other people's pressure at work, somebody else's lack of preparation doesn't make an emergency on my standpoint either. So once again, it's just a beautiful way of offloading so much of the stuff that we may be taking on personally. We're carrying it over time, many layers up over time. How many times, as we look back, have you taken on stuff that honestly just wasn't your battle to fight, or wasn't your concern, or your bad day to bear? So if we could take a breath and allow all those just to release, how much more space there is for us to choose that good day for ourselves. It's pretty potent.
It really is. It really is. I still on that journey of not taking.
Oh, it's the human journey. I don't think till the day we die that we'll have that one licked.
And that's the key. Even though you learn something, that's my son taught me, do you practice it? So practicing every day to not take, like, just being aware of these agreements and knowing and practicing. So sometimes things come up and you'll be like, am I taking this personally right now? Is a good question, because sometimes we get in our feelings with what people do to us. And Kathy made a very good point. Hurt people hurt people. So sometimes understanding where a person is coming from if you want to, or just knowing, okay, that may have hurt me right now, but where might they be to do that? You know, like they might be really hurting right now. And that leads to returning the energy of sympathy or something to encourage them at that point, instead of, like Claudia said, meeting them where they are. Sometimes we could meet them with a little love and graciousness, or just because they're coming a certain way doesn't mean that it's personal to us. They are actually calling out for help. They're calling out for a little love or affection. And sometimes meeting them back with that energy can really solve a lot of the problems and the issues that we have with taking things personally. Like just knowing that that attack sometimes is not there for us to attack back, really. That's what it's not to go in attack mode. It's now to give that love that we have to this person, or show them a little love, even just saying, you know what, have a nice day. Sometimes people aren't prepared for that when they're nasty to you. So when you say, you know what, have a nice day. Like, oh. And that's just giving them the love and not taking what they did to you personally. The third agreement.
Wait a second, I think we're running short
We
on
are.
time, and I really don't want to cut this conversation short. So what I
Right.
would like to propose is that we do it like a cliffhanger, because we're going to be taking a break over the summertime. And I would love to say that we'll do the third and fourth agreements when we come back in September.
Love that idea.
Love that.
Because this agreement also still has so much more
It really does.
and that we can explore, right, in terms of
Right.
taking things personally. And I think that's a great idea,
Oh
Kathy.
gosh, I hope you're not taking it personally that I jumped in there, Joanna.
I'm not taking it personally at all. What's great about that is now we have the summer to practice the first two agreements. So how about that? That sounds good to me. Just being comfortable with the word and not taking things personally. And doing that for the rest of the summer. Let's see where we are in September. I think that'll be awesome. So we're coming back the first Sunday in September, which I believe is September 3rd. But
Labor
we'll
Day weekend, as a matter of fact.
just look forward to us coming back in September with the third agreement. How about that?
We want to bring us your report card. We'll
And we will
report it on
confirm
how
the
we-
date. And I think it's going to be fantastic for everybody to kind of practice and keep us all accountable, right? Can we start looking during the summer at what we are taking personally? Can we stop and ask for a moment, why is this triggering me, before we react? Can we look at, have a little bit of that love and give a little of that empathy and ask, what's going on with you?
Absolutely.
Have a great summer, everyone. We'll see you September 3rd.
Love and light.